anyone who sent me an email or a tweet at that time, grow up. Okay?
Right.
Grow up. I didn't say it can't work. I didn't say they're bad people. I just said this is concerning. And the Chiefs had concerns, and I think they banked an insurance policy in Sammy Watkins around it. So now, fast forward to now. What can you possibly say? What can you possibly do if you're the Kansas City Chiefs? How can you look at this as anything other than if he came in with a zero-tolerance policy?
Right. I think these reports yesterday, when I saw them, I said they just made life simple for the Chiefs. There's no – I would, as I said, 6 weeks, no – if this was nothing, he would have been exonerated in a week or 10 days or 2 weeks. I think Kevin said this yesterday. Drew Rosenhaus would be out in the driveway saying, well, he's been falsely accused and blah, blah. Nothing out of them. He never said anything, probably under advice of counsel. But most people would say this never happened. And so there was not. So to me, there was already enough that the Chiefs were going to have to walk away, but they weren't going to. So this, to me, I don't see how. Can you see how they can possibly keep him? I mean, how? They removed his child from his custody.
This is how. The only way that I see it working that way is if he comes forward or somebody else comes forward and says the girlfriend, fiance, was the one who did whatever happened.
And even
that's the only way I can see it. Because if you sit there and you say, well, Tyreek Hill told Andy Reid this, but he doesn't want anything bad to happen to her. Sorry, bad judgment. And the bad judgment came with getting back together. I mean, I'm sorry. There are. I mean, anyone who's ever had a bad relationship where it is, and then look, it takes two to tango. You know, she thinks he's a psycho. Well, she's got a little psycho in him. You think she's a psycho. You got a little psycho in you, right? There are just bad mixes. You may be good people, but there are good people that come together. They are a bad mix. It can be great sometimes, but the bad is so bad that you have to walk away from the good to avoid the bad, because the bad creates bad things.
Right.
That's what this relationship appears, by all accounts, yet again to be. And if you're the Chiefs organization, the only scenario that I could see is, one, him coming forward and them concluding that the mother was the problem on this and Tyreek Hill had nothing to do with it. At that point, that or, and if it's that, then the or has to happen as well. If I'm the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, in this case, in your scenario, he almost has to be given custody of the child and the children that are to be born.
Which I cannot see happening.
I cannot see happening either.
But if it comes out, if it's deemed that she was responsible, but even if that doesn't, the or is, for me, if it remains this, we don't know, it can't even be considered if he is still living with this woman.
No.
Their relationship has to be completely separated. And I get it. Nobody wants to tear a family apart. But listen, kids grow up in divorced families all the time. And
the only other problem with this, I'll probably take it a step further.
Well, let me finish. And the Chiefs' job is not to raise this kid.
Right.
The Chiefs' job is to do what's best for the Kansas City Chiefs organization. And there is no way this organization can feel like they're doing what's best if he is still living with her. That can't continue. They cannot, my statement would be something, and I was going to say this for noon, but I'll say it. I would tell Tyreek Hill, if you are living with that woman, you are gone. It may not be today, because we're not just going to cut you at this time. We're going to attempt to trade you, and I'm not going to be shocked if he is traded sometime in the next 9 days, like he goes on day 3 for a 5th-round pick. Will not shock me. But there is no way that if I were a general manager, I would invest any resource whatsoever, cap room, dollars, roster spot, in Tyreek Hill if he were still living with that woman. Because they're not a good mix.
I absolutely agree 100%, but I'll even take it further. There's dangers even because they're going to be in each other's lives. There's 3 children.
That's true.
There's 3 children, and
But I'm saying,
barring
for starters,
barring one of them, barring her not even being able to visit the children, it's still a horrible mix, which could obviously lead to violence. It has.
I think, I think their hand is played. They know it, and that's why they are so shut down. Would you trade for the guy?
Well, I wouldn't, but I wouldn't be surprised if some NFL team does. I mean, look how quickly Kareem Hunt got gobbled up.
So let's say that at the end of the day,
on top of that, there's almost a certain suspension here, it would seem.
Let's take a look at what John Dorsey drafted. He drafted in the first round the 18th overall pick, Marcus Peters. He drafted in the third round Kareem Hunt, and he drafted in the fifth round Tyreek Hill.
And he drafted in
round?
Was
that all the same draft?
And what?
No.
What draft? And he also drafted
Peters was
what?
A year
What?
Before those two.
What round was Kavari Russell? The Notre Dame guy.
Oh yeah, third round pick. All right, third round pick.
And they had to boot him because of behavior that they
allegedly. But
right.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree.
Background that they knew about.
Allegedly, and the people that tell me say that the allegedly is not necessary.
Right.
All right, so there is a first, 2/3, and a fifth. And when they take the field, and it all came within the last 5 years. And when they take the field this year, they will have a second and a fourth. Somebody look up what they got for the fourth last year with Peters, who it was. A second and a fourth round player, courtesy what they did with that Peters draft pick that they got, the fourth round they had last year for Peters.
Okay.
And then they got the second is from the Rams. So whoever they take in the second,
right?
The earlier of the 2 seconds, the later of the 2 seconds, excuse me, later of the 2 seconds this year. The fourth, nothing for Russell's third, nothing for Kareem Hunt's third, and nothing for Tyreek Hill's fifth. Did the production you got over 5 years from those players mean that they were worth the risk, the character risk that the Chiefs took? The INTs,
you could argue that it was.
Yeah.
But does it also?
That's what makes it so tough as a general manager.
But has it also created a situation now where the Chiefs maybe are missing some good football players because they have to err on the side of caution?
Could they have had 85% of what they got from those players and still be getting that 85% for 5 more years on new contracts?
The fourth round pick was Armani Watts.
Okay.
Yeah, who looks like he's going to. Most people think he's going to be a good football player.
But there's a pretty good chance, it looks like right now, that this year from a first 2/3 and a fifth, you're going to have Armani Watts and a second round pick.
Right. And you're going to have your organization. Now, thankfully, the general manager who did this is not here anymore. But
he's learned his ways.
But
clearly taking no character risk.
But his lieutenants were there to say no.
Well, I heard Adam Teicher say that he feels confident that Brett Veach was not on board with the drafting of Marcus Peters. I agree, because what I have been able to find out is that, at least the way it was presented to me, is there was no way Chris Ballard was ever going to be the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you go back to when they took Marcus Peters, Chris Ballard was the guy who supposedly was in Seattle. Like, Veach gets all this Patrick Mahomes. Well, Ballard was the Marcus Peters guy. And so if I take those two separate things and try to connect dots, Ballard would never have been the general manager. Even if he were here, he wasn't going to get the job. It was going to go to Veach. So Ballard leaving beforehand, because I think that was questionable. Like, if you knew you wanted – like, if Peters was the problem and the characteristics were the problem with Clark Hunt and what got Dorsey fired, what did it take him all the way to the summer? I don't know.
Well, that's another idea.
But there was a perception that, like, if you're going to do that, why didn't you do it and keep Ballard? I was told Ballard was never it. Well, if Ballard was never going to be it, it's because Clark Hunt wasn't going to let him, or Andy Reid wasn't going to let him. And Peters is linked to Ballard. And I think, so you're right. Veach was here. Reid was here. They wear this. This is part of their resume and part of their history. Although I do think we can see that Dorsey overall was the biggest piece.
Right.
And Ballard was certainly the biggest piece on Marcus Peters.
And this all does tie into Tyreek Hill as well. Because if you, as an organization, were willing to cut Kareem Hunt and
cut Kavari Russell
and trade Marcus Peters, for behavior that doesn't rise in my mind to what we potentially are seeing here, I just don't. I think it's cut and dried now. But that's me. Okay, I'm not thinking. I didn't want him to draft a guy in the first place, so full disclosure.
I'm there as well.
Full disclosure, and he turned out to be. They get great football out of him for
3 years.
3 years. He was a big part of taking them to the AFC Championship game. There's little question of that. So you can't say that it was a football mistake.
Right.
But
let's end on this. But I think when we talk about, is the production they got and what little bit they'll have left if these guys are all gone in this 5-year window, it is a tough call because they did get 3 years of production out of Tyreek Hill. Mm-hmm. They did win. They did go to the AFC Championship game. They did win division title with Marcus Peters, or 2 with Marcus Peters. They, all these things occurred. It is a risk reward. I think my response is the one that was done right from a pure football analysis standpoint, the 2/3 and the 5th. For me, 4th round is where you start the character questions. 1, 2, 3 need to be squeaky clean because you're going to get burnt by somebody who you didn't know or had just not shown one side of their character at some point that's going to blow up.
And also, you're not looking for first, second, and third players also to be 3- and 4-year players. You're looking for them to be 6- and 8-year players on your team.
Yeah. So I will say this: the Tyreek Hill, from a draft, take the humanity out of it. From a football business standpoint.
Right. We're keeping it in that narrow window.
And we're talking about everything here. Listen, I do sports talk radio. I don't do family counseling. I'm not going to talk about the laws or what it is. It's not what I do. That's real stuff. I do the toys. I'm the toy department, so we're going to talk about the toys, the football part. There's a much bigger, more serious issue that's over here. That's not what I do, okay? So that life thing is over on the side. But from a football standpoint, this is what makes it so hard. The Tyreek Hill draft pick, if he is cut, is a good draft pick. Now, they're wearing a lot of
baggage.
Had they not taken the other guys, it'd be like, wow, that's a bummer. But they didn't take him to the 5th. They gave him a shot. They made it work for 3 years. When he was on probation, it was working. But, man, they cut bait and ran away as soon as it got bad. That will be fine. The 2/3 and the 1st are too much to risk, are too high to risk on character. Simple as that, period.
Indeed.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a break. More with Danny Klinkskill. Danny Unleashed. We're at Hen House here at 135th and Metcalf. You can come down and get the real beer. It is here right now. Specials every week. They're going to do tastings every week. Go to henhouse.com to find the location nearest you. It is here at Hen House at 135th and Metcalf. And, of course, Danny Unleashed is always brought to you by our friends. I can now say our friends at Easton Roofing. When it comes to happy customer, most contractors talk the talk, but Easton Roofing walks the walk. Just check out the reviews online at Google, Facebook, Yelp. You'll see the difference. Or you know what? Better yet, have them to your house like I did. I mentioned, Danny, by the way, my repairs that I needed done to my roof. And Dan came by yesterday, and I had 4 things that I thought needed to be repaired. 3 of them he said you don't have to do. We're doing 2 of them.
That's the kind of honesty that you're going to get.
Yeah. Think about this. One was I thought I had a critter, and I had entered in as a dryer flapping in the wind. I was talking about being a moron. But it's like an animal's in there scratching. He goes, let me see if I can recreate it. Go into that room and let me go outside. Well, yes, that's it. You found the animal. No, dryer flap. Flapping is creating this little noise. So I felt like a moron, but I didn't have somebody up there going, I got to patch all these holes in your roof that don't exist. So I was thrilled with that. The guys at Easton are absolutely the best. One of them was kind of a cosmetic. I said, would you do it? He goes, no, I wouldn't do it. He goes, it's fine. It's not harmful. It's just cosmetic. I go, it is number 1 on my wife's list. We're going to do it. We're going to go ahead and do that.
There's something to be said for cosmetic.
3 of the 4 didn't need to be repaired. 1 does. We're going to do 2 of them because 1 is cosmetic and I want a happy wife, right? Happy wife,
there
happy
you
life.
go.
Thanks to the guys at Easton for coming by. You can look them up online at eastonroofing.com.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
If you are looking for quality work on your home by a local company that values integrity as well as quality, then Easton Roofing is the easy choice. You're not just a number or contract to Easton, where no job is too big or too small. Owner Joe Spiker is always personally available to you if you have questions or concerns. For residential and commercial roofing jobs, large and small, attic insulation, gutters, and much more, Easton Roofing is the perfect choice for you. Among their countless accolades are 4 consecutive years as an Angie's List Super Service Award.